Tonight, frustrated travelers as a network issue with Sunwing Airlines leaves them grounded for hours.
Got here and found that there were people here waiting from yesterday.
Hundreds are stuck at Pearson Airport as they await word on their delayed flights, while others are stranded overseas waiting to come home. Plus,
she had the wherewithal to crawl under the platform as the train came into the station.
Police say a woman's quick action likely saved her life after she was pushed onto the subway tracks at Bloor Yonge Station. Officers making an arrest tonight in the terrifying incident. And
we the North, it's snowing. This is what it's all about. We're back, we're back.
A snowstorm didn't stop fans from cheering on the Raptors tonight at Jurassic Park as the team looks to even things up in Game 2 against the Philadelphia 76ers. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Sunwing Airlines is still working to fix a network-wide technical issue that has grounded dozens of flights. The delays making for many frustrated travelers, including at Toronto's Pearson Airport, where some have been waiting for up to 24 hours. Others, meanwhile, are stranded abroad, waiting for word on when they can come home. Dale Manukduk has more.
For many passengers at Pearson Airport today, it was bad news every time they looked up at the departure screen.
We were supposed to leave this morning at 9:30. Yeah, got here and found that there were people here waiting from yesterday.
There was no one to talk to. That's the problem. Like, you will go to the counter and everybody will tell you one thing, but they really didn't know what was going on either.
The airport filled with stranded passengers, some sleeping on the floor, stretching, spread out like a first-class pod. In a statement to CBC News, Sunwing Airlines says our systems provider is experiencing a network-wide systems issue which has impacted check-in and boarding, resulting in ongoing flight delays for a number of Sunwing flights. Some of those delays were long, really long.
Almost a full 24 hours, I guess, at this point, right? So we figure we've spent like 14 out of the last 24 hours here in the airport.
Wendy James is an emergency department nurse who says she's been put through the ringer over the last 2 years. She's hoping to get her family to Veradero, Cuba for a much-needed vacation.
This has been my beacon, my light at the end of the tunnel. It was booked twice before this, and we couldn't go.
Meanwhile, this is the scene in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where Ann Estabrooks is stranded, waiting for a flight to Vancouver.
It's been quite the experience. Literally spent the night on the streets almost in Mexico with nowhere to go and no information as to what's happening with us.
Sunwing says it is working diligently to resolve the issue. It is also informing travelers to know their passenger rights. If a flight is canceled or delayed for more than 2 hours, there may be some compensation under air passenger protection regulations.
The passenger is owed not only meals, accommodation, and transportation to their destination in the fastest possible way, but also cash compensation for the inconvenience up to $1,000.
On the bright side, some travelers made new friends waiting at the airport for as long as they did. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police have made an arrest after a woman was pushed onto the subway tracks at Bloor Yonge Station last night. A 45-year-old woman was arrested at Finch Station tonight and is now facing attempted murder charges. As Talia Ricci reports, police say the victim's quick actions likely saved her from being hit by an oncoming train.
For many subway commuters, it's their worst nightmare.
I think about it every day. I just stay away from the tracks.
I've been commuting for almost 35 years, so you're always very conscious about staying away beyond the yellow line because you never know.
Police say a 39-year-old woman was pushed onto the subway tracks at Bloor Yonge Station Sunday night. She managed to narrowly escape death.
She sustained quite a serious injury from that fall, but she had the wherewithal to crawl under the platform as the train came into the station, so she was not struck by the train. It's scary. I take the TTC myself, but these incidents are quite rare. I definitely would suggest when people are using the TTC that they, stay away from the edge.
Last November, a man was pushed onto the tracks at Bloor Yonge Station. He survived, and a man was charged with aggravated assault. In 2018, a Toronto man pushed a stranger in front of a moving subway train, killing him. He was sentenced to life in prison. At that time, advocates called for additional safety measures on the subway platform.
I think it does reignite the debate at this time. I think as well that it adds to the many other arguments for platform edge doors. And there are other arguments. They add to the efficiency of the ride. You can add more train sets.
The TTC says platform edge doors has been on its agenda for years.
The trick with platform edge doors is that it requires an entire retrofit of the subway system. It means that we have to install, and we are installing, automatic train control on the entire subway system. So all of that's underway and that work is being done.
Stuart Green says the feasibility of these barriers is currently being studied. The TTC is offering counseling support to employees affected by Sunday's incident. Green has this reminder for commuters.
If they do witness something like this, there are power cut buttons at the ends of every platform, and they're under the big blue light. If you see someone fall to track level, if you see someone who unfortunately might get pushed to track level, cut the power immediately. That'll stop trains from coming in.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's hoping April flurries bring May flowers. This is a look at the conditions in downtown Toronto this evening. Toronto and most of southern Ontario getting hit with a spring storm, leading Environment Canada to issue a winter travel advisory for the area. Parts of the GTA, London, Hamilton, Windsor and Peterborough expected to receive between 4 and 8 centimeters of that white stuff. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, thinking maybe I should have waited a little while longer before removing my winter tires.
Yeah, you know, no shortage of things to talk about here as we have a late season snowstorm that's moving through. Pretty complex system, though, that we're looking at because it's spring and we have warmer ground. We also got an easterly wind off the lake. It means in some cases accumulations are going to be lower because of the mixing with rain. You can see the temperatures. These were the highs from earlier in the day, but by the time we were into the late afternoon, all these numbers from Windsor to Toronto were around freezing or just 1 degree above as the system was moving in. And of course, we've been seeing those temperatures rapidly dropping in the evening into eastern Ontario as well. The winter weather travel advisory stretching towards the nation's capital, back towards Windsor. Some of the heavier amounts will be up in towards Georgian Bay and the higher elevations northwest of the city of Toronto, closer to the lakeshore, more mixing. And with the ground warmer, it will tend to melt a little more quickly. So those amounts will be less, but in many cases towards eastern Ontario and those areas I just mentioned, 4 to 8 centimeters. Few areas could even see a bit more. When I come back, I'm going to talk to you about what those areas are and show you where I mean. But for tonight, Ottawa with that wet snow will move in, and we're seeing that mix for Toronto and Windsor starting to taper off down to flurries.
Thanks so much, Colette. After a loss in Game 1 over the weekend, the Raptors were looking to even things up tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 2 of their first-round playoff series. Greg Ross joins us live from Jurassic Park, where people gathered again to watch the game. And Greg, the snowy weather did not keep some fans, at least some fans, from coming out. Unfortunately, it was another pretty disappointing finish tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. A disappointing performance by the Raptors and another lopsided victory for the Philadelphia 76ers. 112-97 was the final score in this game, and it was a tough night for that small group of Raptors fans who gathered here in Jurassic Park to watch this game despite snowy weather and cold weather here. But they did have a glimmer of hope early on in this game. The Raptors came out of the gates hot. In fact, they started the game on an 11-2 run, but it didn't last long. By the time the second quarter rolled around, the Raptors' offense was starting to cool off, just as the Sixers were starting to heat up. In fact, the Sixers would start to pull away and they would never really look back in this game. Now, many of the fans who gathered here in Jurassic Park, they left before the fourth quarter started in this game, but there was a handful of die-hard fans who stuck it out until the bitter end. They weren't willing to give up on this game, and they're not willing to give up on this series.
We got game 3, that's fine. We got game 3. We'll take back the series on our home court, on our house.
I believe in this team. We've been back from losing the first 2. I think we'll do it again.
It was tough, man. The refs got away with it, you know what I'm saying? And that's what it is, man. You know what I'm saying? But we go get the call, we run the hole, because at the end of the day, we ain't stopping it. No, we're stopping it.
Raps in 6! Raps in 6! Raps in 6!
Got to hand it to them. They are diehard fans. Now this series shifts back to Toronto for Game 3 on Wednesday night with the Sixers in control of this series, up 2-0. Now, there's no doubt it's going to be electric inside Scotiabank Arena. This is the Raptors' first playoff game here since 2019. That's the year that they won the championship. The question is, will it be enough to give the Raptors the spark they need to get back in this series, Kelda?
All right, let's hope they, fingers crossed, they fare better at home on Wednesday. Thanks so much, Greg. So Greg Ross live for us tonight. Well, the investigation continues into a drive-by shooting that injured 5 men over the weekend. It happened after the men left a late-night prayer service at a mosque in the city's East End. Ali Chiasson has the latest.
Mark my words, we will leave no stone unturned as we search for these suspects.
Toronto police are still searching for who's responsible for ambushing a group of 5 Muslim men as they stood outside of a plaza. So far, police say there is no indication that they were targeted because of their faith and instead may have fallen victim to just the latest instance of gun violence that's plagued the Scarborough Golf Club and Lawrence Avenue area. Something Toronto police are trying to alleviate.
So that we can bring some relief to this particular community that has suffered, I think, too much gun and gang violence in the past.
3 of the 5 men who were injured in this shooting have been released from hospital. The 2 that remain are expected to recover.
These are 5 members of the community, family-oriented men with kids, married, no history whatsoever of any sort of violence. And I take it a step further, leaders of the community that were shot.
The Scarborough Muslim Association says they have full faith in law enforcement and are focusing on healing. For something like this to happen to 5 Muslim men after midnight prayers during Ramadan has fueled speculation that this was hate-motivated, which police are not ruling out, but the group does not want to create panic in the absence of a motive. Quote, "We do not believe it to be hate-motivated, but would not like to speculate and let the police do their job." The police have not released any suspect description yet, just that a vehicle was seen speeding northbound on Markham Road, away from the scene, around 1 a.m. on Saturday morning. Anyone with information or dash cam footage from that area and time are asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
To the war in Ukraine now, as Moscow appears to be gearing up for a major offensive in the eastern part of the country. Russian missile attacks hit the western city of Lviv today. Officials say it killed at least 7 people. The region's governor says the strikes hit this auto mechanic shop along with 3 military-related facilities. A child was among those wounded. Lviv has been a relatively safe harbor for millions, mostly women, children, and the elderly, escaping the conflict in other parts of the country. The city's mayor says a hotel sheltering some of them was badly damaged in the attack. Russia also struck multiple other targets, including infrastructure across Ukraine. Some experts say Moscow may be trying to wear down any resistance ahead of its planned offensive in the Donbass region. The executive director of the Toronto Soccer Association has completed an 80-kilometer fundraiser called the Walk for the Children of Ukraine.
I was walking my dog one day when the attack on the maternity hospital happened, and I really decided that I needed to do something, as little as it is, to show my concern and my appreciation for the people and the children in Ukraine.
Over 4 days, Alan Gold visited all 21 youth soccer clubs and academies in the city. The goal was to raise money for UNICEF Canada to help Ukrainian children. The walk ended at the office of a nonprofit organization that promotes sports and other forms of culture in the Ukrainian community. Welcome back. More than 2 years after the start of the pandemic, Kids Help Phone says there has been no slowdown in demand for their support. Calls and texts have doubled since 2019. And in order to keep up with that kind of demand, they say they need hundreds more volunteers. Celeste Care has more.
It's understandable if life starts to feel overwhelming. It's okay not to be okay.
When the pandemic first took hold, people across the country put up their hand to volunteer for Kids Help Phone's helpline. 2 years later, the demand for its service hasn't subsided, yet the number of volunteers has.
And what we've seen as things have started to reopen
Folks are going back to their activities, going back to school. We've also seen a decrease in the number of people who are signing up for our volunteer cohorts. And we're conversely still seeing a really big need for volunteers.
Kids Help Phone is the only free bilingual 24/7 crisis support line for young people in Canada. The service was averaging about 1.9 million interactions in 2019. In 2021, it recorded 4.6 million, a number they anticipate will be higher this year.
I'd say to really meet the demand in the time that we want to be meeting it, we'd need probably about 2,000 volunteers active monthly. So we're looking at about 400 more active volunteers on a monthly basis.
There are currently 270 volunteers in Ottawa helping out. While the team is managing with what they have, the director of its clinical operations wants to increase access to its services.
We want to make sure that we're minimizing barriers to access to mental health care services for young people, no matter where they are in the country.
Other mental health clinics, like the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Centre, say they're also seeing more youth seeking support this year.
The stress has continued, right? We're past a pandemic. There's a war in Ukraine. Coupled with that is the inflation we're seeing, and now an increase in interest rates. I'm sure all of that is adding to the stress in many families.
Beck adds that what Kids Help Phone is experiencing with recruitment is similar to what she's seen in healthcare over the course of the pandemic.
I'll bet that's as difficult for them as it is for us in healthcare to find people for some of this work when they're burnt out or they're stressed themselves.
Beck anticipates that the demand for youth mental health workers will only increase in the months to come. Celeste Care, CBC News, Ottawa.
In South Africa, the military is being deployed to help with relief efforts after a week of devastating rains and flooding. More than 4,000 people have died and dozens are missing in the coastal city of Durban and surrounding areas. 10,000 soldiers from the National Defence Force are being called up for rescue and medical support missions. Thousands of South Africans have been left homeless, without power and safe drinking water after flooding and mudslides. Rescuers are using sniffer dogs to search for people trapped under the debris. Northern BC got an early taste of the incoming wildfire season this weekend. A fire ban went into effect in the northwest region late last week, but that didn't stop a human-caused fire from spreading just 24 hours later. It broke out Saturday, with crews from across the region being brought in to control the spread. Officials say grass fires are common this time of year, but high winds and almost a lack of precipitation are increasing the risks. The fire ban for the region is set to stay in place until it rains. And record-breaking temperatures in parts of India are being blamed for at least 15 heat stroke deaths in the country. Temperatures in some states are over 40 degrees Celsius, numbers that usually aren't seen until May or June. India's meteorological department has issued heat wave warnings, and residents are being urged to stay indoors or to find shaded areas. Environmentalists are pointing to the record-setting temperatures this early in the year as another possible impact of climate change. And you are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, and the wicked weather continues. The snow has since turned to rain, though, in downtown Toronto. Currently, the temperature is sitting at 2 degrees. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, nothing like a dose of winter in mid-April.
Yeah, like we were talking about, it's pretty when it happens in December. It's kind of a different story when you're getting into spring and we have a system like this moving through. So obviously we've been seeing reduced visibility, blowing snow. It's very wet snow as well. Some of those totals close to 10 centimeters, one spot where we could even see it a little higher than that. But in many cases, we're talking about it being even less or melting, like close to the lakeshore. So there, no, we're not looking at 10 centimeters. I'll go through those details. A cool day on tap for Tuesday? Yes, but we'll rebound by the time we get to Wednesday. Just another quick look at that winter weather travel advisory that we have blanketing southern and eastern parts of the province and points in between. As we roll this forward, you can see close with that easterly wind, but also just the warmer conditions and the effect of the lake. It's more of that rain-snow mix. At times are very, very wet snow that we're seeing close to Lake Ontario. You have a bit of a mix into eastern Ontario, changing over to some wet snow. Where it lingers in these areas a bit longer is where we have the chance chance to see those higher accumulations of that 7, 8, even towards 10 centimeters. And you can see that on the wraparound as well into Tuesday, that you'll be dealing with it. In fact, even some of those wet flurries coming back into the city and rotating, mixing with showers back into southwestern Ontario. So it's going to take some time to really kick this thing out of here. By the time we get to Tuesday night, we'll get into that clearing. High pressure moves in for Wednesday, and we get a bit of a break before the next system moves in, which should be more of just a rain shower event. So snowfall potential, looking at those mounts, 8 centimeters towards London. One of the areas I think we could see higher amounts, just depends on the tracking, is here towards Brockville, along the St. Lawrence there, Cornwall, through that region, just because, again, it may be a little enhanced or hanging around there a little bit longer before it kicks out. Having a look at tomorrow afternoon, those are your daytime highs. Not much to write home about, and we'll see kind of similar daytime highs, not only here around the Golden Horseshoe with those breezy conditions, those winds will eventually let up, but also 4 or 5 degrees, Renfrew at 3 for your daytime highs as well towards the Ottawa Valley there and beyond. Back to Toronto after Tuesday, there's that clearing and that warm up into Wednesday, 11 degrees, still a little bit breezy out ahead of that next system that comes in. And as you can see, it's kind of every other day, Kilda, we'll have something coming through, but the next ones are mostly rain events.
All right, thanks so much. Finally tonight, an event today in Munich, Germany included loads of four-legged fun. Dachshunds and their owners gathered in honor of Waldy, the wiener dog, the first official mascot created to promote the Olympic spirit. That was at the Munich Games in 1972, and this is the 50th anniversary of that event. Some pups turned out in colorful sweaters and coats resembling the original mascot's design. The day also included an obstacle course, fashion show, and a walk around Olympic Lake. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can get caught up on the day's news anytime. Head to our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.